Hi, I'm Rebecca Gordon, and this entire episode today is going to be around the Medicaid massive exodus that is going to impact all of us. If you have clients in the DSNP market, this is one episode you need to memorize and act on now.
You're going to watch this and rewatch this if you sell DSNPs, and I hope to God that you're not new to the DSNP market where this is going to make your blood run a little bit cold. Keyword there being potential chargebacks.
Yeah, so
let's start at the top.
A little bit of the history. So when COVID started, in an effort to help ease a lot of burden on all Americans, the administration put a freeze on Medicaid eligibility, which means this. Normally, if your client's on Medicaid, you have to verify once a year what your income status is so that you qualify to stay on the program. So for the last 2 years, no one has had to do this. And Biden signed into again this January, giving another 90 days to all Americans to stay on. But now, as early as mid-April, it's done. And now people are going to have to prove that they're staying on or that they're eligible, which doesn't sound like a big deal.
Except that it's 15 million people that
have
to prove they're still eligible, which a lot of them are not eligible. And things that would cause your clients to no longer be eligible for Medicaid would be the easy one, is they got a better paying job. That's not as much likely.
They got married.
That's more
likely.
Income. They
Gifts.
got a small inheritance. Even a $2,000 inheritance or more could cause them to lose
you off.
Medicaid.
Yeah.
So, or a personal injury lawsuit. You know, they got a little fender bender.
And they received a settlement for that.
Yeah. So there's all these things that could cause them to lose their Medicaid. They're like, I'm still poor. You know, like I inherited $2,000. I'm not.
Right. So Medicaid is health insurance for millions of Americans, children, pregnant women, Americans with disabilities. And it's typically very, very low income, and it provides a great
safety net.
Safety net for these Americans and their health care.
So one of the things to remember about Medicaid is that it is a joint state and federal program. So it's different in every state. And that's really hard for me as an agent when they call me.
For the different amounts to qualify.
It's different in every state. Like I don't have Illinois and memorized, and then the next call's from California, you know?
Right.
So it's joint, state, and federal. So we talk about Medicaid. A lot of agents automatically think LIS and Medicaid are the same. LIS, federal. So that is the same all through the country. Medicaid, different all through the country. So I hope you're enjoying this so far. Stay with us. So Biden put the moratorium on so nobody could lose their Medicaid. The moratorium is supposed to expire right now unless something happens mid-April.
So in mid-April, so what are we expecting? We are expecting millions of letters going out to all of these recipients saying, hey, Rebecca, it is time for you to verify. So what are the problems with that? I mean, it sounds pretty easy. I get a letter in the mail and I just have to go find my verification for income and I send it back in.
Well, I mean, other than the fact that they might not get the letter, understand the letter, they have moved, they have a language barrier, any of that. We have the barrier on the government side with the Medicaid offices, which they have huge staffing problems like the rest of the country. They have complete morale burnout like the rest of the country. And they're not staffed, even in the best of times, to take this workload. So it is a disaster.
They are anticipating that if clients were to call in, over a 2-hour wait.
That's what they're telling us.
Minimum.
If they're telling us it's a 2-hour wait, it's not a 2-hour wait. That was a best case, make it sound better than it is.
So for the client, what are the ramifications for the client? What could the client expect? So let's say they don't get a letter. They don't get a letter.
Yeah, they moved, whatever.
They go on about their business, and what happens to their insurance?
So if I had a DSNP, I no longer qualify for it because my Medicaid was terminated. I will convert to a deemed status, which means even though I don't really qualify for it, they're going to let me keep it for 6 months. In that 6 months, I'm subject to the premium.
Which nobody ever thinks there's a premium to a DSNP.
What's a typical premium on a DSNP?
It's about $29.
$29 to $33. Yeah. So they're subject to the premium, the copays, the co-insurance, the deductibles. So
things that they've never had.
They've never had to pay.
They've
and
never
so
had any
if
of
you've
this.
sold a lot of DSNP, you can see how your phone could explode, right? And they're going to say, there's a problem. You made an error. You fix it.
Right.
So what do you do as an agent right now?
You've got to rally the troops and get in touch with your clients and coach them on what to expect. Now, what we're going to do more, and we're going to have more episodes on this, because they're calling this like one of the biggest shakeups in the healthcare market since the ACA. This is a big deal.
This is the biggest thing since the ACA. And the ACA, everybody got good benefits. This is the opposite. This is the biggest shakeup, but it's a negative.
But we got to figure out, what are the carriers doing? Because the whole big picture is protecting your business. We want to protect the clients. But as an agent, like we said earlier, you could be faced with a lot of chargebacks, which will also impact the carriers.
The carriers have got to care. I haven't seen anything from any carriers. And I know a lot of carriers watch our show. So if you're a carrier,
reach out to us.
Could you tell us
doing?
Why haven't we heard anything from you? I would assume it's because they assumed that Biden would kick this can down the road, because that's what they've been doing on the eviction moratorium and all this stuff. Eventually, that's going to stop.
It's got to stop.
I mean, it'll stop no later than midterms, but eventually that's going to stop. So maybe that's why the carriers aren't talking about it. But if this does happen in a month, how do you reach all your clients? That's what you need to start thinking about. What's your strategy? You might not have any staff to help you. You might not have any technology, such as employing ringless voicemail. You might not have all your clients' phones. A lot of your clients might not have phones.
Right.
And, you know your client database, and the DSNP market is very different, very hard to reach. Okay, so let's say I legitimately lost my Medicaid.
You lost it. Now what do we do?
Because I got married.
Got it.
And I call you.
Okay.
What are you going to do for me?
I'm going to move you to an MAPD.
What are you going to do for your clients?
You to an MAPD.
So they have an SEP to move to an MAPD, and that SEP starts 60 days before and 60 days after, which is effectively is 60 days after. So they got 60 days to move into a MAPD. Again, they're going to have deductibles, premiums,
they're going to have all these things they've never had.
That stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're not used to it.
It's
Or they could go back to original Medicare, which would be
horrible,
even worse, right?
And that's what I think everybody has to be super vigilant about. Are those customers falling through the cracks that merely go back to regular Medicare?
Okay, this is the very exciting stuff that I chose not to memorize, so I will read it to you. So that in the Build Back Better legislation, which, as you know, is stalled out in our illustrious government, but that is the hallmark of the Biden administration that they hope to eventually get passed in some iteration. Okay, it doesn't look very good because those two senators are upholding it. But if they could get it passed by some miracle, in this legislation are more guardrails to protect big dumps of people off of Medicaid. And they're innovative. So one of them is that a state could only dump so many people a month. I mean, instead of saying all of them, you can only dump a small amount. That's a pretty big guardrail. What was another one? That they could only dump people that have been in Medicaid for at least 12 consecutive months. And that they're going to require the states to attempt to make contact through methods other than mail. Because
courier pigeon.
Well, yeah, you can see people don't understand the mail. They don't read the mail.
Well,
They're saying, we want you to call them.
Typically, these letters, when I've seen Medicaid verification letters before, they're different colors. Like you get the pink letter and you get the green letter, and it's on different colored paper, means different things within the Medicaid system, and it's just it's funky.
Let's end because I'm exhausted personally.
I'm exhausted.
This wasn't a fun issue, but sometimes
it's fascinating. It's interesting that this is going on.
Yeah,
I think
so. As an agent, I get confused on this because I'm like, if you have Medicaid, you always have LIS. Medicaid is state, LIS is federal. But if you have LIS,
you might not have Medicaid.
You might not have Medicaid.
Because the amounts aren't the same.
Right. It's easier to get LIS than it is to get Medicaid. Bum. So, if you enjoyed this content and you felt like this benefited you in your career, do us a favor, because I know we're training a lot of our competitors.
By God, we are. And I know somebody, and I cannot think of your name right now, but this person loves us.
I get people
Watches all the time.
They're like, yeah, I work with Agent Pipeline, but
And
I
works
love you.
with Garrity.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what?
Okay. So
love Brian.
So continue to work with Brian or Dwayne, whatever.
We wanted just a piece of the pie.
Just comment and share it, because that helps us with YouTube. Just give us something. We're not asking you to work with us. Although you should. Okay. Tune in next week. We got more great content for you. Thanks.
Good selling.